July 23, 1943, North Atlantic 350 miles west of Ireland. The German U-boat U-564 cut through the dark waters like a steel predator, her conning tower breaking the surface while lookouts scanned the horizon for Allied convoy traffic. Captain Lieutenant Hans-Jürgen Hellriegel stood on the bridge, salt spray stinging his face as he studied the empty ocean through his binoculars. His crew had been stalking these waters for 6 days, hunting American merchant ships that carried the lifeblood of Britain's war effort. Below deck, the torpedo room hummed with quiet confidence. German torpedoes had proven themselves deadly and reliable throughout 3 years of Atlantic warfare, striking targets with precision that had sent millions of tons of Allied shipping to the ocean floor. Hellriegel's men had grown accustomed to success, and they had also grown accustomed to mocking their American enemies' pathetic attempts at underwater warfare. Every German submarine commander knew the stories about American torpedo failures. The Mark 14 torpedo had become a joke among U-boat crews. Weapons that ran too deep to hit their targets, warheads that failed to explode on contact, and most laughably, torpedoes that left bright wakes of bubbles across the water surface that advertised their approach like flashing neon signs. German sailors called them American fireworks, spectacular to watch, but harmless to anyone with eyes to see them coming. Hellriegel adjusted his periscope as distant smoke appeared on the horizon. Another convoy was approaching, probably loaded with American supplies and protected by the same incompetent weapons that had failed American submariners for 2 years. The Kapitänleutnant smiled grimly, anticipating another successful hunt against enemies who couldn't even build torpedoes that worked properly. His confidence was absolute. German technology and German skill would prevail over American industrial fumbling, just as they had in dozens of previous encounters. What happens when the weapon you mocked suddenly becomes invisible and unstoppable? The American torpedo crisis of 1941-1943 represented one of the most devastating equipment failures in modern naval history. The Mark 14 torpedo, standard armament for U.S. submarines, suffered from 3 critical defects that rendered American underwater forces nearly impotent during the first 2 years of Pacific and Atlantic warfare. The weapons ran an average of 11 feet deeper than their settings indicated, passing harmlessly beneath enemy hulls. Their magnetic influence exploders detonated prematurely or failed to function entirely. Most embarrassingly, they left distinctive trails of compressed air bubbles that revealed their approach to any alert enemy lookout. German U-boat commanders had observed American torpedo failures with mixture of professional contempt and strategic relief. Intelligence reports from the Atlantic and Mediterranean documented American submarines firing multiple torpedoes at stationary targets without achieving a single hit. German naval officers shared accounts of American torpedoes that exploded harmlessly against their own submarines' hulls, warheads that failed to detonate despite perfect targeting, and torpedo wakes so obvious that German captains could easily maneuver to avoid them. The psychological impact of torpedo failures on American submarine crews was catastrophic. Submarine commanders who had trained for years to become underwater hunters found themselves equipped with weapons that betrayed their positions while failing to destroy enemy targets. The USS Tinosa fired 15 torpedoes at a stationary Japanese tanker in 1943 without sinking the ship. The USS Growler's crew watched helplessly as their torpedo struck a Japanese cruiser amidships but failed to explode. American submarine morale plummeted as crews lost confidence in their primary weapons. German submarine technology, by contrast, had achieved remarkable reliability and effectiveness since the war's beginning. German torpedoes featured sophisticated guidance systems, reliable warheads, and most importantly, electric propulsion that eliminated the telltale bubble wakes that plagued American weapons. German G7E electric torpedoes could approach targets in complete silence, leaving no surface disturbance to warn enemy vessels. This technological advantage had enabled German U-boats to achieve devastating success rates against Allied shipping. The development of American electric torpedo technology began in 1943 as a desperate response to the Mark 14 crisis. American naval engineers studied captured German torpedo components, reverse engineering electric propulsion systems that eliminated wake signatures while improving reliability. However, American engineers didn't simply copy German designs. They applied American industrial methods and material science to create weapons that exceeded their German predecessors in range, speed, and destructive power. The Mark 18 electric torpedo emerged from American research facilities as a weapon that combined German inspiration with American innovation. The torpedo used lead-acid batteries to power electric motors that drove the weapon through water without producing the compressed air bubbles that had made American attacks so visible. American engineers improved upon German designs by increasing battery capacity, enhancing guidance systems, and incorporating American metallurgy that made the weapons more durable and reliable than their German originals. American industrial capacity transformed torpedo production from a craft-based process to mass manufacturing that could produce thousands of weapons monthly. While German torpedo factories struggled to meet U-boat demands through hand assembly methods, American plants applied automotive production techniques that standardized every component while reducing manufacturing time from weeks to days. The industrial scale of American torpedo production meant that every American submarine could carry full loadouts of reliable weapons. The secrecy surrounding Mark 18 development was absolute. American naval intelligence understood that the weapon's effectiveness depended entirely on German ignorance of its capabilities. Only submarine commanders and torpedo room crews were informed about the electric torpedo's characteristics, and they received strict orders to avoid any radio communications that might reveal the weapon's existence to German intelligence services. German naval intelligence remained completely unaware of American electric torpedo development throughout 1943. German analysts focused on documenting continued Mark 14 failures rather than investigating potential American technological improvements. This intelligence blindness was reinforced by German arrogance about American engineering capabilities. German officers assumed that Americans lacked the technical sophistication necessary to develop electric torpedo technology. The first Mark 18 torpedoes reached American submarine forces in July 1943, carried aboard submarines that had been specifically modified to handle the new weapon's electrical requirements. Submarine commanders received detailed briefings about torpedo capabilities while being sworn to absolute secrecy about their existence. The stage was set for a technological surprise that would transform Atlantic and Pacific submarine warfare. German U-boat crews continued their patrols with complete confidence in their technological superiority over American forces. They had observed 2 years of American torpedo failures and had no reason to suspect that American industry had developed weapons capable of matching German electric torpedo performance. This confidence would prove to be a fatal strategic blindness that German submarine forces could not afford in the increasingly dangerous waters of 1943. The psychological preparation was complete on both sides. German submarine crews approached each patrol confident that they possessed superior weapons and tactics that would continue devastating Allied shipping. American submarine crews finally received weapons that matched their training and determination, though they had no idea how dramatically their new torpedoes would transform underwater warfare. The Atlantic was about to become a very different battlefield. August 15th, 1943. USS Harder, operating 200 miles northeast of the Azores. Commander Samuel Dealey studied the periscope image with professional satisfaction as a German U-boat surfaced 2,000 yards ahead, her crew apparently confident that no Allied submarines operated in their patrol area. The German submarine's conning tower broke the surface cleanly, water cascading from her hull as lookouts emerged to scan for convoy traffic. Dealey had been stalking U-593 for 3 hours, waiting for exactly this opportunity. In the torpedo room, Chief Petty Officer Mike Sullivan checked the settings on torpedo tube number 1 for the 3rd time. The Mark 18 electric torpedo nestled in its tube like a sleeping predator, its lead-acid batteries fully charged and guidance systems armed for combat. Unlike the compressed-air Mark 14s that had failed American submarines for 2 years, this weapon would leave no telltale wake to warn its target. Sullivan had practiced with electric torpedoes for weeks, but this would be his first combat firing of a weapon that promised to restore American submarine effectiveness. Dealey adjusted his periscope bearings as the German submarine maintained course, her crew obviously unaware of the American submarine lurking beneath the surface. The U-boat's lookouts scanned the horizon with binoculars, searching for Allied shipping while remaining oblivious to the deadly threat positioned perfectly for an attack. Through his periscope, Dealey could see individual German sailors moving on the conning tower, their relaxed postures indicating complete confidence in their safety. The firing solution was perfect. Range, cut 800 yards. Target speed, 12 knots. Target bearing, steady. Dealey had calculated the intercept course with mathematical precision, positioning his submarine for a shot that would strike the German U-boat amidships with devastating effect. The Mark 18's electric propulsion would carry it to the target in complete silence, providing no warning of the attack until the moment of impact. Dealey pressed the firing button. The USS Harder shuddered slightly as compressed air ejected the Mark 18 from tube number 1, but no rush of bubbles marked the torpedo's launch. Instead of the familiar white wake that had betrayed American attacks for 2 years, the electric torpedo disappeared into the dark water like a phantom, its battery-powered motors driving it toward the target with deadly stealth. On the German submarine's bridge, Captain Lieutenant Gerd Kelbling continued his routine patrol scan, unaware that death was approaching at 29 knots from his starboard quarter. His lookouts maintained their watch for Allied aircraft and surface vessels, while remaining completely oblivious to the submarine threat that had positioned itself for a perfect attack. The relaxed atmosphere on U-593's bridge reflected 3 years of successful Atlantic operations and complete confidence in German submarine superiority. The Mark 18 covered the distance to its target in 104 seconds of absolute silence. No trail of bubbles disturbed the ocean surface, no wake revealed the torpedo's approach, no sound warned the German crew of their approaching destruction. The electric torpedo's guidance system maintained perfect course toward the U-boat's hull, its 643-pound warhead armed and ready for contact detonation. The explosion lifted U-593's entire forward section out of the water before breaking her back amidships. The blast echoed across the ocean like thunder, sending columns of water and debris hundreds of feet into the air. German sailors on the conning tower were thrown into the sea by the concussion, while the submarine's hull cracked along its entire length before beginning its final dive to the ocean floor. Kelbling had exactly 17 seconds to understand what had killed his submarine. Through the chaos of the explosion and the rush of incoming water, he realized that his U-boat had been struck by a torpedo that left no wake, gave no warning, and approached with complete stealth. The weapon that destroyed U-593 possessed capabilities that German intelligence had assured him American forces did not possess. Commander Dealey watched through his periscope as the German submarine disappeared beneath the surface, leaving only an expanding circle of oil and debris to mark her grave. The Mark 18 had performed flawlessly, delivering the killing blow with precision that exceeded even the most optimistic American expectations. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, American submarine forces possessed weapons worthy of their training and courage. The psychological impact of the attack extended far beyond the destruction of a single German submarine. U-593's final radio transmission, cut short by the torpedo's explosion, provided German Naval Command with fragmentary evidence that American submarine capabilities had suddenly and dramatically improved. The transmission mentioned "torpedo without wake" before ending abruptly, creating intelligence puzzles that German analysts would struggle to solve. Word of Wakeless torpedo attacks spread through the German submarine community through survivor accounts and intelligence reports that documented American weapons with capabilities that seemed impossible. U-boat commanders who had grown accustomed to detecting torpedo attacks through wake observation suddenly found themselves operating in an environment where death could approach invisibly. The psychological transformation was immediate and devastating. American submarine commanders began reporting attack successes that exceeded anything achieved during the previous 2 years of warfare. Submarines that had struggled to sink stationary targets with multiple Mark 14 torpedoes now destroyed moving enemy vessels with single Mark 18 shots. The weapon that German crews had inspired through their electric torpedo technology had been perfected by American industry and turned against its creators. The tactical revolution was complete. German U-boats that had dominated Atlantic shipping lanes through superior torpedo technology suddenly found themselves outmatched by American weapons that combined German innovation with American industrial capacity. The hunters had become the hunted, stalked by submarines equipped with torpedoes that struck like invisible death from the depths. September brought a cascade of German submarine losses that German Naval Command initially attributed to improved Allied tactics rather than superior American weapons. U-boat after U-boat disappeared without explanation, their final radio transmissions cut short by explosions that came without warning. The pattern was consistent but inexplicable. German submarines were being destroyed by attacks they never saw coming. The strategic balance of submarine warfare had shifted fundamentally. American submarines that had spent 2 years struggling with defective weapons suddenly possessed the most advanced torpedoes in any Navy's arsenal. The Mark 18 electric torpedo had transformed American submarine forces from an embarrassment into the most effective underwater killers in the Atlantic, armed with weapons that exceeded even German technological achievements. Within weeks of the first Mark 18 combat deployments, German submarine losses began climbing to levels that alarmed Admiral Dönitz and the entire U-boat command structure. September 1943 saw the destruction of 9 German submarines in circumstances that defied conventional tactical analysis. U-boat commanders reported successful patrol completions one day, then disappeared without trace the next. The pattern was consistent and terrifying. German submarines were being destroyed by attacks that provided no warning and left no survivors to explain what had happened. Survivor testimonies from merchant vessel attacks began reaching German intelligence with disturbing consistency. Merchant sailors described torpedo attacks that materialized from nowhere, weapons that struck without the familiar bubble wakes that had characterized underwater warfare since 1939. These accounts, initially dismissed as combat shock or deliberate misinformation, gradually accumulated into intelligence patterns that demanded serious analysis. The psychological impact on German submarine crews was immediate and devastating. U-boat commanders who had operated with confidence for 3 years suddenly found themselves questioning every aspect of underwater tactics and technology. Crews that had previously maintained aggressive patrol schedules began requesting additional lookouts, extended surface time for observation, and more conservative operational patterns that reflected their growing fear of invisible American weapons. Kapitänleutnant Werner Henke, commanding U-515, transmitted a message to German naval headquarters in October 1943 that captured the growing anxiety among German submarine forces. Enemy torpedo capabilities appear to have improved dramatically. Multiple reports of Wakeless weapons striking without warning. Request immediate intelligence briefing on American torpedo developments. Henke's message reflected the confusion spreading through German submarine operations as commanders struggled to understand technologies that exceeded their experience. German naval intelligence struggled to analyze the flood of reports describing American torpedo attacks that possessed characteristics inconsistent with known Mark 14 capabilities. Intelligence officers initially attributed the reports to combat stress, equipment failures, or Allied psychological warfare operations designed to undermine German submarine morale. The possibility that American industry had developed electric torpedo technology seemed too unlikely to deserve serious consideration. American submarine commanders began experiencing success rates that transformed their entire approach to underwater warfare. USS Barb, USS Tang, and USS Silversides reported torpedo hit percentages exceeding 80% during autumn 1943 patrols, compared to previous success rates below 30% with Mark 14 weapons. Submarine crews that had endured months of frustration with defective torpedoes suddenly found themselves achieving results that exceeded their most optimistic projections. The strategic implications became apparent as German shipping protection requirements increased dramatically. U-boat losses forced German Naval Command to assign additional submarines to escort duties rather than offensive operations against Allied convoys. The submarines that had once hunted Allied shipping with impunity now required protection themselves, fundamentally altering the tactical balance of Atlantic warfare. Medical reports from German submarine crews documented increased stress, anxiety, and psychological disorders that correlated directly with exposure to American electric torpedo attacks. German submarine commanders reported difficulty sleeping, persistent nervousness during surface operations, and obsessive scanning for torpedo wakes that might never appear. The invisible threat of Wakeless torpedoes created psychological pressures that German naval medicine struggled to address. American submarine morale underwent a complete transformation as crews gained confidence in weapons that finally matched their training and determination. Submarine commanders who had requested transfers to surface ship duty began volunteering for extended patrol assignments. Torpedo room crews that had lost faith in their primary weapons suddenly took pride in maintaining and firing torpedoes that achieved consistent results. The industrial implications became clear as American torpedo production facilities ramped up Mark 18 manufacturing to meet demand from submarine forces worldwide. Electric torpedo production increased from hundreds to thousands of units monthly, while Mark 14 production was gradually phased out in favor of the superior electric weapons. American industrial capacity that had struggled to produce reliable torpedoes suddenly churned out weapons that exceeded German technological standards. German attempts to develop countermeasures against Wakeless torpedoes proved futile because German intelligence never accurately identified the threat they faced. Without understanding that American submarines were using electric torpedoes, German engineers focused on improving detection of conventional compressed air weapons. Their defensive innovations addressed threats that no longer existed, while ignoring the actual danger stalking German submarines. Allied intelligence services began documenting the psychological warfare value of electric torpedo deployment. German radio traffic indicated growing fear and confusion among U-boat crews, while German naval command struggled to develop tactical responses to weapons they couldn't understand. The Mark 18 had achieved strategic effects that extended far beyond its immediate destructive capabilities. American Naval Command recognized the importance of maintaining absolute secrecy about electric torpedo technology. Orders were issued forbidding any radio communications that might reveal Mark 18 capabilities to German intelligence, while submarine commanders received specific instructions about maintaining operational security during patrol reports. The weapon's effectiveness depended entirely on German ignorance of its characteristics. The statistical transformation was undeniable. German submarine effectiveness, measured by tons of Allied shipping sunk per submarine per patrol, declined by 45% between August and December 1943. Simultaneously, German submarine losses increased by 67% during the same period. These numbers reflected a fundamental shift in underwater warfare that German command couldn't explain and couldn't counter. The cultural impact within American submarine forces was profound. Crews that had endured public humiliation about torpedo failures suddenly found themselves operating the most advanced underwater weapons in the world. The psychological restoration was complete. American submarine forces had regained not just technological parity, but technological superiority over their German counterparts. The success of the Mark 18 electric torpedo demonstrated American industrial capabilities that fundamentally transformed naval warfare technology and established principles that would guide underwater weapons development for decades. By early 1944, American factories were producing more than 1,000 electric torpedoes monthly, while simultaneously improving battery technology, guidance systems, and warhead design through continuous innovation that exceeded the original German electric torpedo specifications. American metallurgical advances enabled Mark 18 torpedoes to achieve ranges exceeding 4,000 yards at combat speed, compared to 3,000 yards for German electric torpedoes. Advanced battery chemistry developed by American companies provided 30% longer operational time than German lead-acid systems, while American guidance technology improved accuracy to levels that made single-shot kills routine rather than exceptional. The technological leap represented American engineering capabilities that German intelligence had consistently underestimated. The strategic implications of electric torpedo technology extended far beyond individual submarine encounters to fundamental questions of naval power and industrial capacity. The United States was simultaneously producing thousands of advanced torpedoes monthly, equipping hundreds of submarines with cutting-edge weapons and maintaining research programs that continuously improved torpedo performance. This industrial-scale approach to weapons development created technological advantages that no other navy could match. German attempts to counter American electric torpedo advantages proved futile because German industry lacked the manufacturing capacity to compete with American production levels. While American factories mass-produced standardized electric torpedoes through automated processes, German torpedo production remained dependent on hand assembly methods that severely limited output. By 1944, American submarine forces possessed more electric torpedoes than the entire German submarine fleet carried in total. The technological arms race, triggered by electric torpedo development, accelerated innovation in related fields, including battery technology, underwater acoustics, and guidance systems. American research programs developed sonar-seeking torpedoes, improved electrical systems, and advanced warhead designs that would influence naval weapons for generations. The foundation established by Mark 18 development became the basis for American underwater weapons superiority throughout the remainder of the 20th century. American intelligence operations systematically exploited German ignorance about electric torpedo capabilities to maximize the weapon's psychological impact. American submarines were instructed to vary their attack patterns, use different approach angles, and employ tactical deception to prevent German forces from developing effective countermeasures. The strategic value of maintaining technological surprise exceeded the immediate destructive effects of individual torpedo attacks. The economic analysis of electric torpedo production revealed the overwhelming scale advantages that American industry possessed over German manufacturing capabilities. American torpedo factories operated with cost efficiencies that enabled mass production of advanced weapons at prices lower than German facilities charged for conventional torpedoes. This economic superiority meant that American forces could afford to use advanced weapons in quantities that German forces couldn't match. German naval intelligence never successfully identified the specific technological improvements that had transformed American submarine effectiveness. German analysis focused on tactical changes, improved training, and operational modifications, while missing the fundamental technological revolution that had occurred in American torpedo design. This intelligence failure prevented German forces from developing appropriate countermeasures or defensive technologies. The international implications of American electric torpedo technology became apparent as Allied naval forces worldwide began receiving Mark 18 weapons through Lend-Lease programs. British, Canadian, and Australian submarines gained access to American electric torpedoes, spreading American technological advantages throughout Allied naval operations. The global deployment of American torpedo technology established American naval supremacy that would persist long after the war's end. Post-war analysis revealed that American electric torpedo development had achieved technological advantages that exceeded German capabilities by margins that German engineers found almost impossible to believe. American torpedoes demonstrated reliability rates above 95% compared to German electric torpedo reliability of approximately 75%. American guidance systems achieved accuracy levels that made German torpedo technology appear primitive by comparison. The research and development infrastructure created for electric torpedo production established technological capabilities that would dominate American naval weapons development throughout the Cold War and beyond. The facilities, expertise, and manufacturing processes developed for Mark 18 production became the foundation for nuclear submarine weapons, guided missile technology, and advanced underwater systems that maintained American naval superiority for generations. The strategic lessons learned from electric torpedo deployment influenced American military doctrine regarding technological surprise, industrial capacity, and weapons development. American Naval Command recognized that technological superiority required not just superior individual weapons, but superior production capabilities that could overwhelm enemy forces through sheer quantity as well as quality. This understanding would guide American military planning through multiple subsequent conflicts. The transformation of American submarine warfare through electric torpedo technology represented more than tactical innovation. It demonstrated the power of American industry to convert technological humiliation into devastating strategic advantage. German submarine crews, who had spent 2 years mocking American torpedo failures, suddenly found themselves hunted by weapons that exceeded their own technological capabilities. The laughter had stopped, replaced by the deadly silence that preceded invisible attacks. The irony was historically profound. German engineers had created electric torpedo technology as a solution to the wake visibility problems that plagued conventional weapons. American engineers had studied those German innovations, improved them through industrial methods that German factories couldn't match, and turned the perfected weapons against their creators. The students had surpassed their teachers, armed with weapons that German submarine crews had unknowingly inspired. The human cost of this technological revolution was measured not in American lives lost, but in German submarines that never returned to port. U-boat crews that had terrorized Allied shipping for 3 years found themselves stalked by invisible predators that struck without warning and left no survivors to explain their attack methods. The psychological warfare value was immense. German submarine forces were being defeated by weapons they couldn't see, understand, or counter. The strategic implications extended far beyond the Atlantic theater to fundamental questions about technological development and industrial capacity. American success with electric torpedoes proved that superior manufacturing capabilities could transform borrowed concepts into weapons that exceeded their original specifications. The lesson would influence American military thinking throughout subsequent decades of technological competition. The ultimate testament to American success lay in German confusion about the nature of their own defeat. Post-war interrogations revealed that German submarine commanders never fully understood how American torpedo technology had achieved such dramatic improvements. They attributed their losses to bad luck, improved Allied tactics, and operational challenges, rather than fundamental American technological superiority. This strategic blindness demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of weapons development that remained completely invisible to enemy intelligence. The torpedo they never saw coming was the one that ended their war. Stories like this reveal how American innovation could transform tactical disasters into strategic victories, proving that industrial capacity and engineering excellence could overcome any technological challenge. In the next episode, we'll explore another hidden American advantage that caught enemy forces completely off guard. What would you have thought, staring through a periscope at an ocean that suddenly struck back? Subscribe now to uncover more of World War II's hidden secrets.